Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pat's Pulpit pregame preview. I am Rich Hill, and with me, as always, is Alec Shane. Today, we're going to talk about the Patriots and Seahawks, but before then, Alec, how you doing?
How am I doing, Rich? I'm all right. I'd be lying if I said I enjoy these Sunday night games. You spend all day kind of hanging out, waiting, watching some extremely crappy football, especially in 2016. However, if it's going to be a Sunday night game, I'm glad it's Patriots Seahawks. These two teams haven't played in forever. Wasn't a meaningful game last time they played, so it's good to see this clash of two teams trying to win their respective divisions. Pretty important game, and it's a Sunday night matchup, so the whole world's watching.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game, but before we talk about that, there were a lot of really good games actually today. I don't know if you got a chance to watch any of them, but there were some really exciting endings, some that were just purely infuriating. I don't know if you caught that Broncos-Saints game. But the officials inserted themselves, or I guess did not in this game. That was kind of a disappointment. Right now, the 49ers and Cardinals are tied 20-20, which is a huge shock because the Cardinals were 2-touchdown favorites. The Steelers just scored a last-second touchdown to get a 1-point lead over the Cowboys, so that's in the final seconds there. But first, I mean, the Chiefs had a huge comeback attempt. I want to start off with them. They were down 17-0 to the Carolina Panthers and scored 20 straight points, and they won 20-17. So my question to you, we didn't get to see the Raiders today. Are you worried at all about the Chiefs as being a primary contender in the AFC?
I am not worried about the Chiefs, primarily because they're a good team, but I think they're also a very beatable team. And I think the way that they play that dink and dunk offense that kind of don't give up too much on the defense, I think the Patriots can play right into that very, very well. And for some reason, the Panthers, they're not that good this year, along with the rest of the NFL for that matter. But the Panthers, I think, they're a real big step back. They actually had the game won. Kelvin Benjamin fumbled it. They could have kind of driven down. So that's kind of one of those freak things. This is one of those weeks, it seems, that a lot of crazy bounces and ridiculous plays decide the outcomes of a lot of games. Seems to happen at least once or twice every season, and Week 10 of 2016 is playing into that perfectly. And unfortunately, none of those crazy plays and nutty bounces really went the Patriots' way. Every game that we wanted to kind of go one way went the other way on some absurdity, and here we find ourselves, which makes me a little nervous for tonight, Rich. I'm not going to lie.
That's fair. It's got a little bit of a bad juju going on right now. Talking about those things that happened, we can talk about the ending between the Broncos and the Saints. The Broncos won 25, but absolutely crazy ending. The Saints scored a touchdown, final seconds. They tied it up 23-23. They lined up to take their extra point attempt. The Broncos blocked it and returned it for a 2-point conversion. First time, that's just unbelievable. That's just the craziest ending you can get. What makes it even worse is that the Broncos players stepped out of bounds, but because there's no sideline camera angles like Belichick has been asking for the past 5 years, because those don't exist, they didn't have proof that he stepped out of bounds or definitive proof. All they had were these kind of angled pictures where you could see like have been in bounds, but we don't know if the back of his shoe was out of bounds. So there's just a whole bunch of really terrible angles that you couldn't figure it out. I think the Saints got hosed.
I agree as well. It's funny. I listed what I call bold predictions before this season started. I had 10 bold predictions for 2016, one of which was the Jaguars were making the playoffs. So I'm going to ignore that one. Yeah. But one I said was at least 4 games this year would be decided on some crappy officiating. And while you couldn't say the game was decided, it pretty much was with the Saints this week and then the Bills last week. That's 2 games in 2 weeks. I think, and a questionable officiating call has cost a team the game, potential playoff positional seeding. It's definitely on the table. And the NFL wonders why the ratings are down left and right. It's things like this. You shouldn't ever be talking about the officiating, but every single week the conversation seems to come up. And I guess the fact that you had white sneakers certainly helped. Kind of just one big blur of white.
Camouflage.
I don't know. It's just one of those things. You know, the Chargers were all set to go down and kick a field goal to knock out the Finns, pick 6. The Chiefs were all set to lose. They came back. The Broncos were all set to lose, some craziness, and at least the Jets. There's always going to be the Jets, like a beacon in a storm. They lost 9-6 to the Rams in an absolute barn burner. I didn't see much of that game, Rich. Did you watch it? How'd Bryce Petty look?
He threw an interception at the end. I mean, It went as well as you could expect a 9-6 game to go through. It was Damian Woody, former Patriots offensive lineman. He was moved on to the Jets at the late points in his career. I think he's kind of more of a Jets fan right now. He was just saying how it was a waste of 3 hours of everybody's life. It's just an embarrassment to football just to see them out there. The Jets are just a really bad team. Patriots have them on the schedule twice. They don't know who their quarterback is. They're just a total disaster. So who knows what's going to happen there. Update right now is the Dallas Cowboys are now driving on the Steelers. There's 20 seconds left. There was a face mask penalty called on the Steelers defense. So now the Cowboys have the ball. Oh, they just scored a touchdown. Ezekiel Elliott just ran a 32-yard touchdown. The Steelers are probably going to fall to 4-5. That's one of the craziest endings of the week. The Cardinals also just kicked a field goal to win 23-20 over the 49ers. Happened. Not really interesting as far as the AFC is concerned. We know that the Dolphins won. They have won 4 in a row now. They are 5-4, and they are second in the AFC East, and they are 7th in the AFC. They are currently a game ahead of the Steelers for wild card. I mean, it's not really a thing, but they're definitely in the hunt. But I think more interesting is to talk about the overall landscape of the league. And you look over to the NFC. The Green Bay Packers just got slammed by the Titans 47-25. Marcus Mariota could do no wrong in the NFC.
For me, it's the Falcons for sure. They are definitely a good team. They lost the Eagles today. I guess you got to put the Eagles in there as well as a good team. The Vikings have now lost, 5 straight? They are a team in flux, so I'm not going to count them in there. So I'm going to go Eagles, Falcons, and Cowboys and Seahawks. Those are probably my top 4 in not that order, but that's probably who I'm looking at. So if I had to pick right now, I'm probably looking at a Patriots versus Raiders AFC championship and a Cowboys versus Falcons NFC championship.
Yeah, just looking at the AFC right now, the Steelers are 4-5. They might not even make the playoffs. The Ravens now have a full game lead in the division. Looking at what teams are there in the AFC, as you said, yeah, Patriots and Raiders. I'm not afraid of this Chiefs offense. I think that Alex Smith is a very, very limited player. He can do fine if the defense is absolutely dominant, but I think that the Patriots are good enough to take them on. I think the Raiders are as well. Same thing applies to this Broncos team. I think that the Broncos defense is better than the Chiefs defense, but I think that their offense is worse because Trevor Siemian is not a good quarterback. Full disclosure, I picked him up to fantasy teams because I thought that he would have a good day against the Saints' terrible defense. Matt Stafford was on a bye week, so I thought that Siemian might be a good play. Never do that again. He's a terrible player. He can't hit any passes that you need to. At least with Brock Osweiler, there was a chance that he could hit a couple 50-yard bombs. The Patriots last year, Siemian can't do that. I don't think that anyone's really afraid of this Broncos offense. And I mean, the Ravens are not a complete team. The Texans barely escaped against the Jaguars. Okay, here's this. The Texans lead the AFC South. I think they're 6-3 right now, but they were 5-3 entering the day, 6 or something like that at home. The Texans were underdogs, despite leading the division against the worst team in the division. They were underdogs. That just kind of shows the state of how terrible and uncertain the AFC South is. They're not a real threat at all. So in the end, I mean, as a complete team with their warts, I guess you can say, on their defensive side. Same with the Raiders. And then you have 2 teams in the Chiefs and the Broncos that don't have good offenses. So, I mean, those are your final 4, just any way you slice it.
Speaking of terrible, unpredictable, you picked up Trevor Siemian. I started the Packers defense today against the Titans. Thought that was a nice little plug.
That's terrible.
That was a nice plug and play. -6 for the Packers defense. So that was a brilliant move. I actually have the Patriots defense. I figured I'd bench them in case some craziness happened in Seattle. They're not scoring a lot of points for fantasy purposes. Figured the Packers would wipe the floor with the Titans, and here I sit with 6 points if I just not started anybody. However, we're not here to talk fantasy, Rich. We're here to talk football. We're talking about the NFC. We're talking about the AFC. This is a Super Bowl rematch, a Super Bowl preview, potentially. The Seahawks squeaked out a win last week against the Buffalo Bills on some questionable officiating, as we touched on earlier. Russell Wilson isn't as mobile as he has been. He's dealing with an injury. They have 0 running game to speak of. Jimmy Graham has maybe suddenly emerged out of a slump, so to speak. He had a huge game last week against Buffalo. there's always these plays where Russell Wilson scrambles around and throws deep to Doug Baldwin. And what are your initial impressions of this game, Rich, coming into this Sunday night matchup?
All right, well, I got two. One is on the Seahawks offense, and I think that they are as good as Russell Wilson can make them. And Russell Wilson sprained his ankle in week 1. He sprained his MCL on the other leg in week 3. He injured his pectoral muscle in like week 5. He's just been a walking Band-Aid. He's finally getting healthy according to reports. So I think that he will be a little bit more mobile this week, even though he wasn't very, very active against the Bills. He has 4 rushing yards this year, which is very, very off pace. He's operating at 25% efficiency as a rusher. That really limits how the Seahawks rushing attack functions because they rely on Wilson as a rushing threat out of the backfield in order to get defenders off balance and to allow those running backs to get a more open lane into the second level. Doing that, with the offensive line being so terrible, they have to really rely on that passing game. And they were able to do that with Jimmy Graham, and I think Doug Baldwin is one of the more underrated receivers in the NFL. But there's only so much that those guys can do, especially if the Patriots are able to build up a lead and then they can drop everyone back into coverage. So long as Russell Wilson is contained, I don't think that this Seahawks offense will be too great of a threat to this Patriots defense. But that's my second thought is looking over the inactives, there is no Eric Rowe. He is a healthy scratch. And Kyle Van Noy is also a healthy scratch, which means that of Jimmy Graham. I know that we weren't really expecting Van Noy to do it one-on-one, but I'm sure Jamie Collins would have drawn that matchup a few times. That means that the coverage matchup is going to go to Devin McCourty and Patrick Chung. And I think that's probably the most crucial battle between the offense and the defense is how are those players going to match up? Because if they can slow Jimmy Graham, then I think that the Patriots secondary, I believe that Malcolm Butler will get Doug Baldwin. That'll be a good one as well. But if the Patriots can do better than Jimmy Graham does, then the Patriots are going to be fine.
Here's what I'm worried about, Rich. And looking at just the matchups all across the board, offense versus defense, defense versus offense, etc. What the Patriots seem to have really struggled with this year, and I touched on it, and we've touched on it in previous previews and podcasts and whatnot, is finishing tackles and particularly finishing sacks when they have the quarterback in the grasp in the backfield. You saw it with Tyrod Taylor. You saw it with Charlie Whitehurst. You saw it with Jarvis Landry, Landry Jones. You just see these quarterbacks who, for some reason, the Patriots are having a hard time wrapping them up and allows them to extend the play. And one thing Russell Wilson's probably the best in the league at is running around about 30 yards behind the line of scrimmage and then just hitting a bomb to one of his receivers for a huge gain, keep a game really close. They can get right back in it with a big play like that. So I'm hoping in this bye week, the Patriots address finishing off those sacks. And if they get a quarterback in the grass, they can actually bring him down for once. Because if they can't do that and they can't contain Russell Wilson, could be a long day for that secondary. Because as you mentioned, Doug Baldwin's a good receiver. Jimmy Graham's a good receiver. You can't cover those guys forever. So if Wilson has time to run around back there, could spell some trouble.
No, absolutely. And head coach Bill Belichick actually talked about this a little bit during his press conferences over the week, where he said one of Russell Wilson's best skill sets is his ability to roll out. He's able to go into the open field, extend plays, buy time. And once he escapes the pocket, it's up to the linebackers and the defensive ends to make the decision to tackle Russell Wilson. Because if you do that, you open up a little pocket behind you in coverage, and then I can guarantee you that some receiver will be there waiting for a big first down play. So Belichick said, you know what, sometimes you just got to make the decision that you just stall him and slide him all the way to the sideline and hope that the defensive tackles or a defensive end will clear it up. And so I think that that's something that will definitely be worth monitoring, is how these players function in open space with everyone on the move and on these scramble plays. So that's something to be concerned about. But let's talk a little bit about the inactives this week. And I want to hear your impressions on this one. So Eric Rowe is inactive. Dion Lewis activated this week, not playing. He is a scratch. Woodrow Hamilton, defensive tackle, is not playing. Adrian Waddle is not playing. He's the 4th offensive tackle. That's not too much of a surprise. Kyle Van Noy is not playing. DJ Foster is not playing. And then Matt Lengel, the former Bengal, is not playing. Are any of these surprises to you, or what are your thoughts based off of the players who might actually be playing based off of these inactives?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Dion Lewis is kind of a surprise. You figure they activate him, they want him to play. I figured he wouldn't have a big day today. They'd kind of ease him back into the offense. But I would imagine the Patriots' offensive strategy today is going to involve a lot of quick passes and running backs catching the ball out of the backfield to try and slow down the pass rush. Even though Michael Bennett's out today, that's a huge loss for Seattle, not having him in the lineup. That said, I think they really more activated Dion Lewis because the deadline came and went and they had to do it. He's just not quite ready to play yet. I'd rather save him for the postseason. Not really too upset over that. Again, I wasn't expecting a huge day out of him to begin with. More touches for Blunt. And James White has more than admirably filled in my opinion, in Lewis's absence. Van Noy was a guy I was thinking he would start today. I figured some combination we talked about once Collins got traded, the combination of Mingo and Van Noy and Landon Roberts, and those guys would basically kind of Voltron themselves into one Jamie Collins. And I guess they're pleased with the Landon Roberts and what he's brought to the table. So I guess look for Mingo and Roberts to fill that second linebacker role. It makes me wonder if they're going to maybe do like a one linebacker set with a more kind of edge defenders, keeping Wilson in the pocket, maybe a NASCAR package, maybe a weird kind of dime nickel hybrid. I'm very curious to see the defensive kind of base the Patriots used today based on those inactives.
Yeah, that's very possible. I think that they could use that 5-1 front. They used that a few times against the Bills. I think that they used it against the Browns as well when they had Terrell Pryor in the backfield. But they do that when the other team relies a lot on the rushing attack. And if they had that 5-1 front, that would allow them to play the nickel in the secondary. And I think that would actually be a good idea because if they don't feel overly confident with their linebackers, they have a lot of depth on the edge. And you can play your Alan Branch and Malcolm Brown in the middle. You can have Jamal Sheard and Chris Long and Rob Ninkovich. That's your front five. That's pretty good. Those are some savvy veterans that you can have out there. Chris Long used to play for the Rams, very familiar divisional rivals with the Seahawks. He knows how to play against him. Is as sound as you get on that edge spot with regards to playing contained. He might not make a lot of flashy plays, but he's always in really good position. So if you put Long and Ninkovich on the edge, have them do the contained stuff, maybe Sheard can generate a little bit more pressure up the middle because this Seahawks offensive line is awful. I don't know if you've seen anything about them, but it's offensive line last season. And then make it worse. It's hard to fathom, but it's true. I mean, as bad as the Patriots' offensive line was in pass protection last year, that's how bad the Seahawks are in pass protection this year, and as how bad they are in run blocking. They are not good at anything. So right now they're missing a starting tackle, Bradley Sowell. They're starting George Fantz, who offensive tackle got his first start last week against the Bills. He started a football game since he was in 8th grade. So this is a very inexperienced offensive line. They don't have a lot of talent. They rely on a lot of late-round picks that they hope that the coaching staff can build up. They have not done that. So if the Patriots can't get a lot of pressure on Russell Wilson, then that's going to be a big letdown. So my question for you, Alec, looking at this Patriots defensive line versus the Seahawks offensive line, which Patriots defensive end do you think will need to step up the most in order to slow down the Seahawks offense?
So it sounds like a highly resistible force meets a highly movable object when it comes to pass rush versus offensive line here. I think most of us are thinking the pass rush hasn't been what we expected this year. You made the case over and over, Rich. It's game plan specific. They're not looking to rush the passer as much as contain the pocket and make them make throws. Hopefully we will see some changes in that today. It's funny you actually said the edge defenders because I was going to kind of cheat a little bit with my X factor and use the combination of Chris Long and Rob Ninkovich on the edges to contain that pocket. Again, I'm not expecting a lot of sacks out of those guys, but they need to set the edge. They can't let Wilson scramble out to the outside. If I had to pick one of those two guys, I'm going to say Rob Ninkovich. I think he's a little more wily, a little more experienced. He kind of has the system down a little bit more, and he just knows how to do that a little bit better. So if I had to pick one edge defender, I'm probably going to go with Rob Ninkovich to set the edge and maybe rely on Jamal Sheard to stunt around, to crash the A-gaps, and get them sacks at the middle.
Yeah, well, my sneaky choice is going to be Trey Flowers. I think that Flowers has been the Patriots' best pass rushing defensive end this year. I think that it's going to come in real handy this week. They don't have Anthony Johnson, who's their primary pass rushing defensive tackle, so I think that Flowers might assume some of that role. I think that's something that I want to monitor. I got a few other questions for you. I'm going to go rapid fire here. Staying with the defensive side of the ball, you have Malcolm Butler at one of the starting cornerback spots. Eric Rowe is inactive. the number 2 cornerback for the Patriots, and what are the ideal matchups between the Patriots cornerbacks and the Seattle Seahawks wide receivers?
Yeah, I think you're right in that Malcolm Butler's probably going to take on Doug Baldwin. Those are two really scrappy guys. So if one gets in the other one's head, look for a lot of laundry on the field. Doug Baldwin, I love him as a receiver. I think I hate watching him when I'm playing against him because he'll have like 56 yards on 6 catches and talk about how he's just one of those guys. He gets in your head. And Malcolm Butler, I think, can be rattled a bit by extremely trash talking. So look for a lot of hand fighting, a lot of nastiness going on between those two. After that, though, I think Jermaine Kearse, we all know him all too well, courtesy of that ridiculous catch that almost cost the Patriots Super Bowl back in 2014. But actually, I'm going to go with Tyler Lockett as the number 2 guy, and I probably want to have Logan Ryan on Tyler Lockett. I think that's a pretty good matchup. Lockett is a pretty shifty receiver, is pretty versatile. He's got a decent route tree. I think, though, that if Logan Ryan can bump him a lot at the line, he should be able to win that matchup because, as you mentioned, I feel like the safeties are going to have their hands full with Jimmy Graham, so it's a lot of one-on-ones coming up for the Patriots. So Lockett versus Logan Ryan could be a pretty fun matchup. So who do you put on Jermaine Kearse? It's a good question. Obviously we have Derrick Rowe is out. Is it going to be Justin Coleman? I don't know. Are they going to maybe play 3 safeties and have Deron Harmon kind of do over the top with a coverage thing? I don't know. I think that's real for me is who's going to match up third receivers because I figure Logan Ryan on one, Malcolm Butler on the other, and then we've got kind of one guy on the count for it.
Well, my thought was that Logan Ryan would match up on Jermaine Kearse. That was my idea. I think that Tyler Lockett, I agree with you. I think that Lockett is the bigger threat as a receiver. He's more dangerous in the open field, but I think that Jermaine Kearse has been out snapping him. And because of that, that's why I think Logan Ryan will do it because Logan Ryan has always matched up against those bigger corner or bigger wide receivers. So I think that's his matchup. I think that when Tyler Lockett comes in, for Cyrus Jones to have a little redemption story, but I think that that's dangerous. And I also think that Justin Coleman is a good matchup as well because the Patriots like to use Justin Coleman against those straight line speedsters. And we're talking like Kenny Stills and Mike Wallace. So I think that Tyler Lockett is a little more dangerous than those players. They're a little more versatile. And I know that's high praise, but I think that Justin Coleman has a skill set that can allow him to cover Lockett. Although I'm pretty confident, I know I don't like this prediction one bit, I'm pretty confident that Tyler Lockett's going to have a 30-plus yard play with one of the Patriots cornerbacks just like half a step behind him, and it's just going to be so close, and it's going to yank your chain a little bit. But moving on to the Patriots offensive side of the ball, I got a question for you now. Is Tom Brady, quarterbacks have not thrown an interception yet this season. They are 3 passes away from setting an NFL record for most passes to start a season without an interception. And this is a platoon of 3 different players. The current record is held, I believe, by the 2008 Washington team, where I forget who the Jason Campbell, I believe, was their starting quarterback. And so the Patriots have a very good chance of setting a record here. Do you think that Tom Brady, he has over 120 for a passer rating in each of his first 4 starts? Is there any chance he can continue the success against the Seahawks defense?
Well, if you remember, Rich Hill, I predicted Brady's first pick of the season last week or 2 weeks ago against the Buffalo Bills. Didn't really work out, which I'm happy about. So I'm kind of torn right now. I can either keep predicting Brady's first pick this week until it happens, hoping I'm proven wrong every single week, or realize I already kind of shot my wad a little bit with my last prediction of the first pick and just keep my mouth shut. So what I'm going to think, I'm going to err on the side of jinxing it. So I'm going to say Brady throws his first pick this week. That said, it will not be in the first 3 passes of the game, and so he will at least tie or set the record for most, or Patriots as a team will set the record for most passes thrown without an interception. But I'll go with Brady's first pick this week at some point.
That's good. That's good. I think that's possible. I mean, the Seahawks defense, they love forcing turnovers. They thrive off of them. One player in the Patriots passing offense I'm looking forward to watching is James White because, I mean, last in the Super Bowl 49, the Patriots played the Seahawks. Shane Vereen was such a big component in that Patriots fourth quarter comeback. I don't even know what his numbers were, but he picked up approximately 600 yards in the fourth quarter. He was a machine. I think that James White as good, if not a better job as a receiver when you compare him to Shane Vereen. I think that Vereen was a better pass blocker, but I think that James White is arguably a better receiver. And so I'm curious to see if James White can have a huge day against the Seahawks defense. I think that the Patriots are going to rely on their tight ends with Rob Gronkowski and Martellus Bennett to open up a lot of things underneath. I think that they're going to play a lot of the wide receivers out of the slot, whether it's Chris Hogan and Julian Edelman or Danny Amendola. Malcolm Mitchell is active this week. He was a healthy scratch in week 8 against the Bills. But I think that a lot of what's going to happen is that the Patriots are going to find clearings underneath where James White can pick up the ball and get yards after the catch. So my question to you, who factor on offense?
I'm actually going to go with Julian Edelman today. I think that there's two things are going to happen, one or the other. Did you notice last week LaShawn McCoy had a monster day on the ground against Seattle? This is not the Seattle defense that's going to stifle you at the line of scrimmage if the running game gets going. So there's definitely a chance the Patriots go very run-heavy in this game. However, I'm going to really see it more of a similar game plan to what we saw against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, which is a lot of quick outs, a lot of quick slants, Brady throwing the ball quickly, not letting the defense get to him very fast, and no player runs that little slant route and that little hook route quite like Julian Edelman. I still say of all the receivers, non-tight ends receivers on that team, he has the best rapport with Tom Brady. They're in each other's heads. They're besties. So Edelman's going to have a big day today.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that while Edelman's production hasn't been what it always has been, he's still getting opportunities. You look at how Brady has been targeting him. He's getting 9, 7, 9, 8. He's been getting almost 10 targets per game. He has been active. He hasn't been producing or turning it into yards, but I think that'll eventually come. I think it's important to note that he has remained a part of this offense, even if he's not getting his typical 12, 13 yards per catch. He's still getting opportunities. He's still shaking off the rust from his foot. So I agree. I think that element is going to be a big part of it. But I'm going to lean my hat on Gronkowski and Bennett. I think that defense has been vulnerable against tight ends in the past because of the matchup problems they provide against the cover 3 defense. And what I mean by that is the receivers do a good job of distracting and occupying those cornerbacks, which leaves a single high safety and a couple linebackers, and they're responsible for covering the tight ends. And I take Gronkowski against a tight end, or I take Gronkowski against a linebacker every single time. And there are ways that you can manipulate the safety in order to make it just a one-on-one with Gronkowski and a linebacker in the second level. And so I think that you look at what Bennett and Gronkowski offer this offense, I think that they're going to have a very productive day. And I was looking at some of the numbers, and the Seahawks over the past 3 years are 4-7-1 when they allow a tight end to pick up 50 or more receiving yards. And 2 of their victories have come against the 49ers, who are terrible. Playing against NFL caliber teams, they're 2-7-1. So I one of those wins was on a blown call against the Falcons this year. That was a big non-call when Richard Sherman just blatantly interfered against Julio Jones in the final seconds in field goal range. So I think that if the Patriots find a way to get Gronkowski and Bennett involved, and I do think they will, then I think that the Patriots are going to be in a position to win.
So if you're Pete Carroll, Rich, and you're the Seattle Seahawks, and you are coming into Foxborough, not a historically horrible place to play in terms of crowd noise and whatnot, but the Patriots do very well there. They're 12-4 off a bye since the year 2000. They usually win games after a bye, especially at home. If you want to attack this Patriots offense, you're going to have to get to Brady. You're going to have to get a lot of pressure, hold them to maybe 20 points or under. How do you do that?
Well, I think that the Patriots' vulnerabilities are the same as they've been for the past decade, and it's to pressure Brady up the middle. And I think what is a new component, because Brady has improved his mobility, is that you have to have the edge defenders squeezing from the outside. You know, you can no longer just get pressure up the middle and expect to fluster Brady, because he'll move out of the pocket and make a play down the field. So I think that this is going to sound weird. If the Seahawks can pressure the Patriots in a similar way that the Patriots treat mobile quarterbacks, and that's by rushing and pressing with their edge players and then penetrating up the middle with their linebackers and with their defensive tackles, then that's how you get your sacks on Brady. That's how you get him antsy, and that's how you negate his newfound ability to move around outside the pocket. So I think that the Seahawks do have the personnel to do that. I think KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner are arguably the best linebacker duo in the entire league right now. So that they're able to generate a lot of pressure. Cliff Averill is playing at an all-pro level as pass rusher. So they have talent on that defensive front, and it's just a matter of finding the right matchups, because we know that this Patriots offensive line, while a lot better than the past couple of years, they still have vulnerabilities. Nate Solder still struggles against speed rushers, as does Marcus Cannon. Andrews struggle against bull rushers, and Shaq Mason is still very, very raw as a pass blocker, and he can be beaten by anyone who has a counter move. So I think that if the Seahawks find matchups that they can exploit, they will be able to generate pressure on Brady, and they have a good enough secondary in order to keep the coverage long enough in order to prevent Brady from getting rid of the quick release.
All right, we're going to answer some quick rapid-fire questions for you. Do some over-unders on some players, and give me an over-under on the number I give you. All right?
All right.
LeGarrette Blount, 100 yards rushing.
Under.
All right. Rob Gronkowski, 4 catches, 79 yards.
Over.
All right. Martellus Bennett, 3 catches, 36 yards and a touchdown.
Over.
Julian Edelman, 10 catches.
Under.
Chris Hogan, 4 catches for over 100 yards for a deep throw.
Under. Way under.
So not a big day for Hogan.
I think Hogan's a decoy today.
Interesting. Patriots defense, 3 sacks.
Under.
Patriots defense, 2 interceptions.
Under. I think that Wilson does a good job protecting the football.
Tom Brady, 350 yards passing.
Oof. Under. I think that he's going to have his lowest passer rating day of the season. So I think that he'll I don't know if he'll throw an interception, but he won't be as efficient as he has been with those big 40-yard passes to Hogan and Gronkowski.
Interesting. Well, it sounds to me, based on those over-unders, you're predicting a kind of lower scoring, kind of grind them out game that's pretty close, but you've not predicted a score yet, Rich, so we should probably get right to that. If I remember correctly, you actually won last week, or 2 weeks ago,
Finally.
I should say, with the Buffalo. You got back on the board. So the hammer's in your court. Patriots, Seahawks kicking off in a little less than half an hour. What do you got?
All right. Well, so the Patriots are 8-point favorites, according to Vegas, and there are some factors in play here. I think that the Patriots offense and the overall team has done a really good job, but the Seahawks have not lost by double digits in like 5 years or something crazy like that. So that gives the Patriots a very small amount of wiggle room. Will the Patriots be the first team to beat the Seahawks by double digits? Possibly. I don't know if that's a good bet. I think that the Seahawks have a good defense. I think that the Patriots, I know that their defense is probably ranked number 1 in the NFL right now. If you look at how the Vikings played today, I think it's possible. But I think that the Patriots defense, I think, could still be vulnerable to Russell Wilson. I'm still not entirely sold on them. So I think that this could be a mid to high scoring affair. I think that the Patriots win this one something in the range of 27-20.
27-20 Patriots. Yeah, I honestly wouldn't think – it's not really the end of the world if the Patriots lose this game. It might actually be good for them. I feel like they could use like a smacked in the mouth kind of loss to bring them back to earth a little bit. Belichick's great at keeping the locker room quiet and keeping everything down, but they haven't really had a hard test yet really this season, and a really good defense and a really good quarterback. And so, and it's a non-conference game. So a loss here wouldn't be the end of the world. And honestly, I feel like I would actually call the Seahawks winning this game if it wasn't off the bye week, but they're just so good off the bye. They've had 2 weeks to get ready for this game. Bill Belichick was effusive all week in his press conferences. He's not going to overlook them. I think the Patriots do win this one as well. And since I have a kind of soft spot in my heart for this particular score, I'm going to go Patriots 28, Seahawks 24.
Ooh, that's going to be a good one. I like that one. That's good. That's a bold choice. Hopefully everything turns out the Patriots' way here. I think that they have a good opportunity to move on to 8-1. That'll guarantee them a non-losing record for the 16th straight season, which is tied for, I believe, the 3rd most in NFL history, behind, I believe, the 49ers, behind the Landry Cowboys from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and behind the Cleveland Browns, actually, from, I believe, the 40s and 50s. So the Patriots will be moving up the charts with one more win. Alec, do you have any final thoughts about this matchup?
Enjoy the game. Either way, I'm going to be too amped up to sleep tonight, so tomorrow's going to suck.
Absolutely. So everyone enjoy the game and find out more information on patspulpit.com. Have a good one.